We are the wind in the sails of your business. We are your compass. Chart your course towards your targets. Africa Business Radio. Towards a profitable Africa.
You're listening to Lagos Landlord, an exclusive podcast for real estate investors and players in the real estate industry, with your host, Amara Musa.
Welcome to another episode of Lagos Landlord, exclusively brought to you by Africa Business Radio. My name is Amara Musa, your host and guide to the real estate scene in Nigeria and the global market. If this is your first time tuning in, this is officially our fourth episode. Ding, 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 ding. And I would like to welcome you on board. For our returning listeners, well, you know the drill. Get strapped in for another amazing episode. So let's get right into it. Now, the British Institute of Facility Management notes that the facility management is the integration of multidisciplinary activities within the built environment and the management of their impact upon people and the workplace. Now, the question likely to agitate the minds of potential users of facility management services is whether or not the educational training of practicing facility managers is sufficient to enable them to be trusted with highly sophisticated infrastructure and facilities. Another challenge is the need to convince consumers of facility management services that they are not patronizing quacks, which would therefore affect their quality of living. Everybody wants to be comfortable. I know I do, especially when they are paying their hard-earned money for it. It's also interesting to see the evolution of facility management in Nigeria, as the practice was pretty much alien to Nigeria until about 1993, according to the Journal of International Real Estate and Construction Studies published in 2011. Facility management has taken center stage in property feature requirements by investors and tenants alike. But then brings the dilemma as the floodgates that have opened. So lack of qualifications and incompetence seem to be huge bottlenecks in the seamless delivery of services like our foreign counterparts. This is a common view, that more educational training and skill beyond what is obtained by the respective background training of certain facility managers, in quote, are currently required for better practice in Nigeria, like we see in other African countries, while simultaneously infusing innovation and global practices. I mean, at the end of the day, we want to get to the bottom of this, don't we? We want uninterrupted power, trimmed gardens, uniform security, and a clean environment as promised before purchasing or renting a property. I'm going to be speaking with authorities in the facility management arm of the real estate industry today, and we'll be talking about adopting best practices for service charge administration in Nigeria. I can imagine that you have many questions concerning your service charge. What am I paying for? Why is it so high? The managers are terrible. Let's talk about it all today on Lagos Landlord after this break.
You're listening to Lagos Landlord, an exclusive podcast for real estate investors and players in the real estate industry, with your host, Amara Musa.
Welcome back to Lagos Landlord. For those of us just tuning in, welcome. We're talking about adopting best practices for service charge administration in Nigeria. Now, joining me today, we have representatives from Alpha Mead Group, both from the facility management arm and the development side, so that we can get a balanced opinion between facility management and real estate development. Now, joining me today is Mr. Damola Akindolire, Managing Director of Alpha Mead Development Company. And you listeners are very lucky to have him here today talking to us, because I know if there's anything I know about Mr. Damola, he loves to give value. And to bring him here, I literally had to tie him with a very thick rope to get him here to give us solid insight on the facility management and development side of things in the real estate industry. Also joining him is Engineer Dayo Oyeniran, the Head of Facilities and Business Development at Alpha Mead Development Company. Yes. So, welcome the two of you. How are you?
Good.
You guys are in your traditional attire, looking very sharp.
It's Friday.
Yeah, so very, very nice. Friday groove. Unfortunately, I don't get traditional attires to wear on Friday because I have to be in corporate wear, because you are my guest and I am your host.
Absolutely.
So welcome on board, gentlemen.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Damola Akindolire, for the purpose of this, I'm going to call you Damola. Is that fine?
Absolutely.
Okay, and Dayo? Yes?
Dayo.
All right then. So let's get right into it. I mean, facility management is a very, it's a very complex matter in Nigeria. And it's very important that we get into it, because I get a lot of questions in my practice as a property agent in Nigeria. But before we get into the nits and the grit of things, I just want our listeners to get an idea of who they are talking to. So can you tell us 3 words that describe you, Damola?
3 words. So would I say cool, calm, and engaged?
So we have a swaggy daddy on our hands. Very nice. And Dayo, yourself?
I would say interesting, fun-loving, and adventurous.
Dayo is special. He has used 4 words to describe himself, but that's great. So, Damola, can you tell us a bit about you and about what you do?
Okay, so thank you very much, Amaya, for having me. So basically, who's Damola Akindolire? Well, I'm a real estate professional, passionate about that space, because I'm someone who's passionate about people having roofs over their heads.
Fantastic.
Shelter is one of the 5, top the hierarchy of needs. You have food, shelter, clothing. So being number 2 after food, shelter seems to play the most vital role in any human being's existence. So that drove me to even my surname, is somewhat related to real estate.
Really?
So if you were to interpret my surname in, in English, it would mean that the general owns the land.
Nice, I love that.
So this is my birth, all right? So in terms of what I do, I work with a very fantastic outfit called Alpha Mead Development Company. Mm-hmm. In Alpha Mead Development Company, we're seeking creative solutions to meet the needs of aspiring homeowners in Nigeria. Mm-hmm. And when we say creative solutions, we all understand the barriers that exist with real estate, real estate financing, real estate acquisition, real estate land titling. So we understand all the challenges. We know this is exactly what it's all about. And our job is to see how we can fit all the moving pieces and still help people achieve their homeownership aspirations. And then we've also gone beyond that point now to say, okay, how about those, the coronavirus exposed quite a lot of things in our country. And the first and the only vaccine is you having a home, stay at home.
Yes.
So we realized people were having challenges meeting their rent obligations, because Nigeria is one of those very few countries in the world where you charge 2 years rent in advance. And it's unbelievable.
But that's illegal now.
Well, it's illegal by law, but for some reasons, it's still the practice.
It's still practice, yes.
Even annually is a lot. If you earn your salaries monthly, you can't pay your rents annually. So we came up with a product that now helps people. It's called the Rent for Less. That helps people pay their rental obligations on a monthly basis.
Interesting.
So those are part of the creativity that we bring to the industry, and that's exactly what Alpha Mead Development Company is all about.
Interesting. That was quite insightful, and I am sure our listeners are getting a feel of this rent monthly in Nigeria. We are yet to see amazing days in this our country, especially given the recent events that have happened. So, Mr. Dayo, Engineer Dayo,
Yes, please.
can you please describe what service charge is?
We have different definitions for service charge, but in the real estate industry, I would say service charge is the deposit or the charge that you made for maintenance of on the property which has been leased or rented out. So it's the charge you pay for the maintenance, for the operations or maintenance of a particular property.
Okay.
So that's what it means around the real estate.
Okay, so following from that, I know service charge varies from different locations.
Yeah,
I mean, just yesterday, I was in Banana Island in Ocean Parade, and then I went home. So, obviously, the service charge where I live and Ocean Parade are very, very different. However, I do believe that no matter how luxury a property is or no matter how normal a property is, as long as you're paying service charge, there are certain things that are expected in a service charge bill.
Definitely.
So what are the consistent features of such a bill?
Okay, so I would say the first is the personnel. You know, it's about carrying out some services. So who are the people that would do the services? So that has to be catered for in the service charge.
Right.
Then for the particular property that we're looking at, what are the equipment, critical equipment that are installed in that particular facility? That would dictate to how do you maintain them and at what cost would you maintain them. For example, a property that has 3 swimming pools would have a different service charge at the end of the day total with one that doesn't have any.
Okay. So are you saying that, so personnel is always consistent,
yes,
for sure. Is there anything else?
So the services, the critical and the equipment that are installed in those particular services,
particular to the property,
definitely also forms the major and the bulk.
So for instance, if someone had a garden, someone else might not have a garden.
Exactly.
And someone might have a swimming pool and someone else might not have a swimming pool.
Have a lift.
Right.
Lifts. And so some would actually
wouldn't have lifts, and some of them more cleaners to clean, a larger space.
Complexity, inner and outside. So exactly.
Okay.
So a very vital point that you mentioned. So you talk about inner and outer. So in some, developments, you have what we call full-scale facilities and management service offerings. But sometimes, because of budget constraints, some of them also limit such services to only the external features. So, for example, it's supposed to actually cover, total facilities management actually covers everything. Whereby you have both the internal and external assets being maintained by the same personnel. And the whole idea of facility management is actually to ensure that the equipment or the assets that you own are able to achieve their full life cycle benefits.
Very key for landlords to know that.
So when you buy an asset and for example you buy a generator and you see 3 years down the line generator is already having challenges, it's because you haven't engaged the right professional. Sometimes those equipments can last 10 years, 5 years and above if the right personnel that has good understanding of the assets. And that's what facility management is all about, to ensure that we're able to give value. The value we bring to the table is ensuring that if you buy a computer or you buy a generator, that the full maximum benefit that could be derived from that asset is given to the client through maintenance, through consistent management, through consistent preventive actions that would extend the life cycle of such an asset. So it's important that because sometimes people just see facility management like a drain pipe, and it's not really a drain pipe. It's actually giving you value. So if you don't have the right facility manager, you probably buy 2 generators in 5 years. But with the right facility manager, the right knowledge and the right skill, you actually will buy only 1 in 5 years. So it's really down to the naira and kobo. And we as practitioners, we're also seeking new ways to show clients that this is how we add value. So you have both the integrated facility management and you have the total facility management. So those are options within the facility management space. But service charge, like Dayo said, is particular to the service offerings of a particular asset depending on the critical equipment, the type and the size of such an asset.
Interesting. We are here to give value. That is what Damola is saying right now, and he's backing that up with the things is, I mean, if he was a rapper, he'll be spitting rhymes. I think that's what that would be, because he's sounding, I'm getting it, I'm understanding it, and I hope you are too. So we're going to get down into more critical issues in the facility management space right after the break.
Listening to Africa Business Radio, where you get up-to-date insights on the Africa business landscape. Log on to www.africabusinessradio.com. Your favorite shows are available on podcasts. Download them on our website and mobile app. Africa Business Radio, towards a profitable Africa.
We are the wind in the sails of your business. We are your compass. Chart your course towards your targets. Africa Business Radio, towards a profitable Africa.
All right, welcome back. So much excitement over here as we talk about resolving and impacting, actually, the facility management space, an arm of the real estate industry, a very vital arm of the real estate industry. So, back to you, Damola. Now, I get a lot of horror stories between landlords and tenants. Oh, my landlord made me pay for my transformer. Hey, a landlord said we had to buy parts for the generator. Hey, landlord will not fix the pool lights. What is your response to the notion that landlords use service charge as an opportunity to shift lease obligations to the tenant?
Very interesting. So, I'll speak from a developer's point of view, and I'll also have Dayo chip in from the facility manager's point of view. The reality is this. We all need to see the responsibility and care of assets as a joint responsibility. And so if you were to carry out repairs on a damaged pump, for example, that is part of the things that you can conveniently accommodate under a service charge regime.
But that would be the responsibility of the managers to infuse that in the... It's not a... I feel like the issue is in the middle of the year, we just get... In the middle of the year, we just get... One would just get, pump has broken down. This is... But then you get the question, but I paid service charge. Why?
So that's where the challenge is. Like any equipment, there's bound to be the element of failure. The equipments are not... yes, they're supposed to run as efficiently as possible, but there's also the likely chance that they could fail as well. So when you look at that you take it from that point of view, and that's why you have both the preventive and the reactive method of maintenance. The preventive would ensure that we're able to restore, maintain as I went due, so that the equipment doesn't get to the point of failure before you give it some attention. While the reactive measures are the ones that, unfortunately, for whatever reasons, couldn't help it. So, and there's also a ratio. The ratio for preventive to reactive is usually between 80-20, so 20% reactive, 80% preventive, so that way you're not caught in the middle of any of this. So your pump can't just suddenly spoil.
Right.
If the right thing is done,
beforehand.
Exactly.
I see.
So now when it comes to the issue of transformer, this is a major capital asset. It's no longer maintenance. So you're not repairing the transformer, you're replacing the transformer. And therefore, the landlord normally, because the tenant is only deriving value for a limited period
of time,
cannot put the demand, on the tenant. The landlord can't put the demand on the tenant to replace a transformer, because that's absolutely wrong. He's not deriving full value that you are getting, because the reason why you rented the property is because he has a transformer, he has power.
Because when you go, the generator is still there.
Definitely.
How many generators do you want to buy in your lifetime before you buy your own property?
So, in terms of replacement, and this is where landlords do not price rents appropriately. So when landlords price rent, they price it from the building only, but there are other features that add value to the building. And that's why most estates, best practice requires setting up something called the Capital Asset Replacement Fund.
Nice.
Whereby, because you cannot predict what would happen in the future, so out of your rental income or whatever income you get from the property, you set aside a particular sum into that account. And this is where facility managers have to do more to educate their customers as to, this is the reason why we set aside funds. In the event where there's a bad transformer or there's a damaged generator or there's a broken lift is broken down, we're able to take from that fund, replace the assets, and that gives value back to the property. So if the lift wasn't working, nobody will pay. If you're, for example, in Ikoyi, high luxury brow, development, and you're saying people should pay 9 million for a building without the lift functioning. I mean, nobody will do that.
Exactly.
So you just have to separate repair from replacement. That's really the bottom line. I think that I may have one of the
separate repair from replacement. I like that.
Exactly. So we call that unplanned costs, because at the end of the day, unplanned activities would definitely happen on the facility. The time and the complexity is what would differ. And what we have done recently as an innovative way to try to solve that particular issue is what we have developed, something we call the obsolescence plan. So it gives a predictive analysis of every of the critical equipment installed on the facility. We can predict when it is likely this will have a particular issue.
The obsolescence plan.
That is our own internal innovative strategy.
Slang. Or is this a strategy? Oh, I see. Okay.
To try to predict what how the equipment on the site will
behave
in a couple of 5 years, 10 years. So even without us being on site, without us being on that particular, so far we have the data, so far we have the details. We can predict that in the next 5 years this particular thing should go wrong. So plan for it before it gets to that level.
Interesting. Planning. So planning is very, very essential when it comes to facility management, which brings me to my next question. There's usually a lot of discontent on the quality of services rendered by facility managers in Nigeria. I mean, till date, the tenants I have placed in properties still call me. I mean, I would have left them 2 years ago. They'll still call me, Amara, please talk to the landlord, or the landlord calls, please, Amara, please talk to the tenant. Why does it seem so difficult to provide good services across the board? What are the challenges of facility management practices in Nigeria?
Okay, so I think it will depend on the particular solutions provider. I'll take an example.
Does our country have anything to do with it?
Well, definitely. The environment, the attitude, because some people will want to, no matter how you want to describe what you want to do, they think you want to dupe them. So that attitude would not even allow anybody to understand what you're saying.
So maybe there's a requirement for reorientation.
People need to understand what FM is actually about and the value it brings to the table. Because at the end of the day, if your equipment, if your facility is well maintained, you pay less at the end of the day over time. Because when your cost of repair is actually getting more than 20%, then definitely something is wrong with your site. And you pay more, definitely.
Definitely,
so
yes.
At the end of the day, people need to understand that FM has come to give them, like my MD will say, we have come to shoulder all your problems.
Who's your MD, Mr. Akindolire?
Yes.
This is what he says?
And also another of my MD, Mr. Wale Olufore.
Okay.
He will say, we have come to shoulder your problems. You just go and rest and sleep. So at the end of the day, people need to understand it. Once you understand it, then at the end you connect, definitely.
We will shoulder your problems while you just go rest and sleep.
Exactly.
That should be a slogan for someone.
Yeah.
Okay.
To add to that as well, so the reality is, FM in Nigeria is tough because of the environment. So one of the very strong costs that people consider to be FM related is the provision of power.
Interesting.
So because we have a huge power deficit in the country, so 50% of your service charge cost actually goes to power. And power is a function of the general economy. So if you're in any other country where you're not dealing with power issues, the facilities are going to be limited to basically soft and very minor hard services. Cleaning, gardening, and
the life.
So that's why. So in this environment, because a lot of those things are directly related to the lack of infrastructure in our environment. That has created its own challenges for the industry. Secondly, Nigeria has a poor maintenance culture.
Tell me about it.
Yeah. So when you talk about maintenance in Nigeria, I mean, it's everywhere. We have so much money. Once the place is run down, we just build a new one, rather than maintain the old one.
Yes,
so
true.
that's the challenge here. So then Dayo mentioned the issue of service orientation. We're not naturally service oriented as a country, as citizens. We believe we're very much entitled.
I mean, facility, in all fairness to us and our ignorance, facility management is still fairly new.
Yeah,
Yes,
to
it
some
is.
extent.
It's still a baby.
Yes, it is. In the past, what you used to have is estate agents running facilities.
In fact, that brings me to my next question. Now, according to the Journal of International Real Estate and Construction Studies, it states that facility management is broad and requires both technical and management skills, and is therefore a multidisciplinary profession. So, can facility management be done without any official training, do you think?
The reality is, the report is quite correct. When you say it's multidisciplinary, that's why you can't find one single body regulating the industry. So you have mechanical engineers, you have electrical engineers, you have builders, you have, so you have the full wide of different engineering disciplines. And,
it's interesting you also mentioned agents as well.
Yes, they are all part of the ecosystem. And they are property managers. Agents are actually property managers. So when you look at that from that point of view, you realize that there are still some limitations in terms of skill, in terms of experience, in terms of knowledge. And that's why when you look around today, not any company that does the trash disposal and all that is a facility management company. There's a whole lot more
to it.
There are systems.
Place.
If you ask the facility manager, one of the things you can use to really check if you're dealing with a professional facility manager is to ask things like, what kind of computer-aided facility management software do you use? Those are things that help you show we are human beings. So these things give good history of the assets in the location. When the first thing a facility manager should do when you move into an asset is to come up with what we call the asset register. And then put some life cycles, to the asset register itself. This generator has done 3,000 hours, it has done 2,000 hours, this lift has done this amount of maintenance. Those are things that help you to predict their failure point, like Dayo had mentioned. And then you can put in place methods to, put the right funds to acquire or replace them when they fall due. So the industry is quite very, very, very young.
Yes, it is.
It's the youngest in our space, and some measure of professionalism is required, and that's why we have a training center. The whole idea of the training center was to help recruits, train, retrain, so that we can offer value.
When is your next training? I need to get up on that.
Okay, I know we have a couple of them. The professional facility management training, we did one virtually in September.
Okay.
And I think we should have the next one coming up maybe early in the next quarter.
Is it Damola that teaches? Does he teach? If he teaches, I'm registering. If he's not the one, I don't know.
Trust me, you haven't seen anything yet. The team is packed with professionals, all the way to even performance management of equipment and systems. So these are the kind of skills you would get when you come for training. So just because you can change the light bulb or you can dispose trash does not make you a facility manager. There's more to it.
There's more to it. I like that. So now, with all our issues and our predicaments going around this industry, what are the resolves that need to be in place in order to align with international best practices and standards?
I'll let Dayo speak to that, but maybe I'll add a few things. First is processes must be certified to certain standards. Processes are what determine the final output of anything. So when you have a very detailed, documented process, it's very likely that the output of such an element would be consistent. So that's one of the things Alpha Mead had to do. We had to certify our standards, our systems.
That's the ISO?
Yes, the ISO standards. To two international bodies, which is the United Kingdom Accredited Society and the American National Standards Board. So we're certified to ISO 9001, 2015, which is also the latest risk-based ISO process, which means we're able to look at risk from a very broad point of view and put mitigating factors to manage such risk for the customer and on behalf of the customer as well.
Fantastic.
So that is what we do from a standards point of view. So the more people subscribe to such standards, it makes it easier for us to begin to create some standards in the industry.
I'm loving this. No, Dayo, I have a special question for you. If someone, just before we round up, if someone were to invest or rent a service property, what are the questions that one must ask their facility manager or agent? Just give me 3, please.
Okay, you need to be sure that the FM provider is up to standard.
Okay.
Now, you need to, the capacity of the service provider to deliver on the site is very key.
Okay.
Possibly we can ask for qualifications and experience of the personnel that would drive the service. Okay. Then what are the procedures, the SOPs, the controls that the company has in stock? And like he also mentioned, a good FM company should have a CMMS system that to drive maintenance on the site.
Fantastic. As my mother's pastor would say, I'm filled in the spirit. So thank you so much for your time, gentlemen. We have had an amazing time with you today. Very insightful. We've learned a lot. We've learned that value is very important. We've learned that the things that landlords need to do in order to maintain their assets, like have aside an asset replacement fund so that you can put aside some funds away for the rainy day where you need to take corrective measures on some of your assets on ground. Wow. How do we follow you guys? I have it here. We can follow you on Instagram at Alpha Mead Development. All right, everyone. You can catch up with me on Instagram as well at amaramusa_, or you can visit my website at www.amaramusa.com, where I take you on exclusive property tours and give you the latest in the Nigerian real estate scene and beyond. I'm not sure Damola has an Instagram account. Do you?
I'm not that old school, Amara. Come on.
Damola, do you have an Instagram account?
Definitely.
Wow, woo.
What do you mean?
Wow, woo. Okay, Damola, please. What is your Instagram handle?
Really?
Yes,
okay,
no?
Of course. My Instagram. Okay, so I have DAMEAKINS.
Okay,
on Instagram,
yeah, okay.
And the same handle goes for Twitter and Facebook as well.
Okay, fantastic, everyone. And Mr. Dayo, do you have one?
Yes, I do.
You do? Okay.
Dayo Tush.
Dayo Tush, yes. Providing tush services.
Something like that.
All right, very lovely. All right, everyone, we had a lot of fun today. Also, remember that Lagos Landlord has been exclusively brought to you by Africa Business Radio. Toodle-doo.
You're listening to Lagos Landlord, an exclusive podcast for real estate investors and players in the real estate industry with your host, Amara Musa.
You're listening to Africa Business Radio, where you get up-to-date insights on the Africa business landscape. Log on to www.africabusinessradio.com. Your favorite shows are available on podcasts. Download them on our website and mobile app. Africa Business Radio, towards a profitable Africa.